Thank you for checking out our trailer for the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. By the end of this, you'll know who we are, why we're doing the show, and what we'll be talking about. Hope you enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brine and Tonya Hamilton.
Thank you for joining us for this preview episode of the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. I'm Brine Hamilton. I'm joined by my wife, Tonya. And a little bit about us. We'll be celebrating 14 years of marriage later this year. We're parents of 4 wonderful children, ages 12. We have 9-year-old twins and a 4-year-old as well. Hey, Tonya, do you want to start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so let's go back a few years. Prior to going on mat leave with our last son, I had been in the social work field for over 15 years and at Children's Aid for the last 10, working on the domestic violence team and sexual abuse team with children and their families. After we had our last son, we lost our nanny who we had being off on mat leave. And I decided that, you know what, I think it could work, that I could stay home with our kids. And I decided to do that and actually ended up opening up a home daycare because everybody needs extra finances. I've been doing that for this is the 4th year now. And I always thought that I would just do it until my son went to school. And this is the first year doing it where he is at school. And I'm absolutely loving it. And just decided that, you know what, this works for me. I enjoy working with children and it works for my family. So I'll keep it going. The one thing that I've missed, however, being working with kids is the interaction that you have with adults and conversations along the way. So I'm really enjoying meeting and talking to the people that we're interviewing for our podcast. And it's really filling that void of asking great open-ended questions and learning what other people out there have to teach us. So that's a little bit about me.
And a little bit about myself. I spent 15 years working in the security industry, most of that in the healthcare space, and really enjoyed that career. Recently, I joined a software company that focuses on security and public safety departments, law enforcement. So it wasn't a huge change in terms of the field that I'm serving, but a completely different job role. I also have the unique opportunity to serve on the board of directors for the International Association for Healthcare Security and Safety. Been a part of that organization for many years and really just enjoy the relationships and just the learning that comes with being a part of that association. I've had some really unique opportunities as well to teach at a couple of local colleges. And again, those have been really rewarding opportunities as well. There's nothing that compares to having an impact on somebody's life and career. Again, just a very rewarding experience. And then more recently, I've taken this interest in podcasting. So the end of 2019, I started the Healthcare Security Cast, which now I'm approaching the 100th episode, and also co-host the Proactive Security podcast with Mike Hodges. So both of those focus on healthcare security. The one with Mike Hodges, we focus specifically on workplace violence in healthcare. And I had this desire to start another podcast that wasn't related to my field. That was when Tonya suggested, hey, why don't we do this together? So it just gives us another thing that we can do together as a couple. And, you know, it's very unique right now because both of us are working from home. Tonya has, you know, as many as 5 kids here for the daycare during the day. And, you know, I'm working from home and then we have to fit in time, obviously, to do the podcast and then family, but we make it all work. And so far, it's been a really great experience.
So why did we decide on Disrupt the Everyday podcast?
Well, we were really just looking at helping people to navigate their way through life, you know, really navigating their way through the everyday. And we had actually thought of using the Navigating Life name as our podcast name, but we found out that was being used by a number of people. And some of them, you know, in many cases, they hadn't really continued with the podcast. So I didn't want people looking for ours and kind of finding a podcast that wasn't really going anymore and getting that confused with what we're doing. So we thought more about it, and obviously we're talking about everyday topics, but we want to really kind of interrupt the status quo. We want people to get out of their comfort zone or just learn new things. So, you know, we're kind of disrupting that status quo of everyday life. So that's why we settled on Disrupt the Everyday.
And I also thought too, when I listen to podcasts or other sermons, people speaking, I'm disrupting that every day. I usually fit it in to my normal jobs that I have to do throughout the day. So if I'm doing the dishes, making dinner, getting the kids' lunches ready, folding laundry, that's when I'm throwing on a podcast. That's when I'm listening. So
Yeah, so hopefully we can be a welcome disruption in your everyday. All right, and let's transition to why we started the podcast.
So I know when you had talked about starting a podcast, you wanted to have conversations with people out there that have unique stories. And I like that idea. And I also thought, well, what am I listening to? My main focus right now is parenting, like learning how to work with preteens and just all that kind of stuff, relationships, finances, health. And I thought, why don't we look at all those categories and what we learn pass on to other people who are out there in similar situations. And the other unique thing is that even if you're not in that situation that we're talking about, the reality is you know somebody that could benefit from the conversations that we're having, and that can be passed on and other people can learn and be equipped with the information people have to share.
Yeah, I think the topics that we're looking at are broad enough that there's something for everyone. And even for someone who's not in our situation where you're married, you have kids, you're working from home, just the topics that we're covering, again, we're covering things from parenting, relationships, not necessarily even as a couple or as a married couple, but just those day-to-day relationships, the relationships that you have at work. Everybody has relationships, so that's something that's going to be valuable for everyone.
My thought too is even so far, just in starting this off, we've interviewed people who have been TED Talk speakers, a lady who, has been on Oprah and CNN, just so many different platforms for her. But my thought behind the whole thing is that everybody is a professional in some aspect of their life. And I really wanted to focus on just people that are those professionals and that could share. So I wanted to learn about how life was for single dads raising their children on their own, because you don't actually hear that so much these days. And it's there, it's a reality. And so, yeah, we could speak to counselors and so on, but why not speak to somebody who's lived through that situation, right? Why not speak to people who have children with disabilities over a therapist or counselor? So that's also another passion and goal that I had in mind.
I think the other important piece as well is that we're talking to people who have different experiences than us, oftentimes different opinions. And I think that's important to have those conversations with people who may not see things the same way you do. Just getting that diversity of opinion and perspective, again, just makes you more rounded. And I think my goal for this as we progress through doing all of these interviews is that somebody who's struggling with something can come and search our episodes and find something that's going to help them with whatever they're dealing with. Again, and that's kind of why we have the broad topics, but things that everybody's dealing with.
So, what are we going to be talking about?
So we'll be talking about a lot of things. We kind of touched on some of them already. Obviously, we'll be talking about marriage, relationships, parenting, finances, entrepreneurship, careers, personal development, kind of a smorgasbord of topics. But again, things that kind of apply to everybody. So there's something there for everyone. So hopefully that gives some context. And if you're listening to this on our launch day, which is April 5th, 2021, there's going to be 5 episodes available that, again, hit on a range of topics. So hopefully there's something there for you, and hopefully you enjoy the content and it's beneficial for you. So thank you for listening to this. Check out the podcast for ways to disrupt your everyday.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.